Well, I guess we'll call this meeting to order. And Doug, do you want to do roll call?
Yes. So EC Bell,
He raised his hand.
he raised his hand. Well, I was looking at my paper when he raised his hand, so I couldn't see his hand. Oh, there's both of them. Melissa Daly,
Here.
Shannon Eoff, Larry Hampton,
Here.
Carol Sherwood.
Here.
And we have a new student commissioner, and I did send her the packet, but she did not join us today. She officially starts September 1st.
Okay.
Her
What's
name
her
is
name?
Joyce Del Rosario. She's a student at George Fox University.
Hi. Excellent. All right. Well, I guess we should move to approval of minutes. You have a chance to look. They're quite lengthy, but is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I move that we approve.
I moved it.
Okay.
I second. This is Melissa.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Thank you. Public comments. It doesn't look like we have anybody from the public with us. So moving on to time-sensitive grant requests.
So here,
Doug,
Mr. Chair.
I don't know if I need to do this right now or if you need to talk first, but I think I need to say that I have a potential conflict of interest in this. I don't believe I have an actual conflict of interest in this situation.
You beat me to the guns, Larry. So thank you for that. Yeah, because you're not making a recommendation. You're only making a recommendation on this one. You're not making a decision. But by your declaration, given your affiliation with Habitat, it needs to be on the record. So we did our NOFA. We only received one application. That was for our time-sensitive grant. And that was from Newberg Area Habitat for Humanity. So the material is in your packet. They are requesting a grant of $5,000 for their A Brush with Kindness program to assist low to very low income households doing improvements to those particular residences. I think a lot of that is, weatherization, heating, the kind of those basic, got to have your shell closed up, otherwise you're losing all your cool air or you're letting all the hot air in. Situation. So staff went through and did the evaluation and concluded that it met the minimum requirements in the proposal. I did not go through and actually score them for the commission members. That's something we're going to kind of do over the screen. So we're going to try something we haven't done before. And I do have a list so I can be able to keep track of it all. The $5,000 grant would be matched with in-kind contributions. And so the total project amount would be $12,500. We've listed in the report, different organizations that are in their application that assist them in these types of endeavors. And they anticipate that they would do about 7 projects over the course of about a year. The 1-year timeline would occur from the time the council actually made an award, if one is recommended to award. And then we've got a contract that we have to go through as well. I did list in your report some potential items to be considered. And, that's one being that there would have to be a grant contract entered into between the city and Newberg Area Habitat. If they do not spend all the money within the 1-year period, any remaining funds would have to come back into the fund. They would have to provide quarterly reports and then a closeout report so that the commission can see the progress, the work that's being done, the homeowners or renters that are being assisted in all this. And then I'll share those reports with the city council as well. And then, as I mentioned, that final report that would have to be submitted at the end of the 1-year period. So you have in your packet the full application. I did include a resolution, the guiding principles of the commission. I know some of you haven't seen that in a while, so it's always good to get that back in front of you. So I did look through that, and of course, the whole NOFA is structured around the guidelines that have been established for this commission. And then there's the scoring matrix, which is the last couple of pages of your packet. So with there, Mr. Chair, I would turn it back over to you and the commission to score.
Okay. And so from my reading of it, the first 7 criteria, the minimum threshold, that's already been met. So we start with number 10, I guess, in the list for score, and up to 10 points. I wasn't sure, is there a certain number of points they need to get in order to, or is it just the strength, showing the strength of the application?
Strength of the application. There is not a minimum number.
Okay, so the first
there's a
one
potential total points of 65.
Right, okay. So project provides new affordable housing or new affordability through retention or rehabilitation, of existing housing within the city. What do you think, folks?
This is Melissa. I went through and kind of scored, on my own, and was giving this a 7 mostly because it's like there's no ability to retain the housing affordability beyond the people who are living there currently, but it's still obviously worthwhile and staying affordable by keeping people in their homes in an affordable way.
Yeah, I'll just throw in that this one was the one where I thought maybe least apply. I mean, not that it doesn't apply, but it's not as strong in that because it isn't new affordable housing or making things newly affordable, but it is hopefully retaining, rehabilitating some existing housing so people can stay in their homes. So yes, I would not give it the full 10, but would probably give it 5 or above myself. What say the rest of you?
Are we actually enabling them to stay in their home or just making their home more comfortable?
It's sometimes both. That we've built ramps, or they have built ramps, that allow people to stay in their homes. So it's accessible. I've helped to do projects where it stays accessible to them as they age in place. So
we
some
don't
of
really-
both.
We don't really know what these particular projects are going to be. We just.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
Just a little historical. We've done this kind of working relationship with Habitat in the past. I think you were referring to projects we did that were particularly related to people in mobile homes, as I recall. And I agree that it's not a 10. I guess I'd ask the question, does anybody think it's lower than a 5 or a 6? If no one sees it lower or 5 or 6, then maybe we can tag it as a 6, 7 and move to the next category if someone's not concerned we're ranking it artificially high.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I don't want to spend more time than we have to on each one of these things, but I also want to do our due diligence as well. So does everybody feel okay with what EC just said? I mean, a 6 or 7-ish?
Yep, this is Melissa.
Okay.
I'm good with 6 or 7.
Okay, and Shannon, I see you nodding a little bit. You all right? Okay. How about if we say a 6.5? Is that okay?
I'll just take the notes of six or
Okay.
seven.
Okay, good. Project retains the affordable housing units as affordable. Longer period of time, the unit remains affordable, the higher ranking the project shall be given. This is up to 15 points. Again, it depends on the project. If it's weatherization, it probably does help keep it affordable for people to live in it longer. Again, we don't know what these projects will be exactly. So again, somebody want to throw out a number that if we all can kind of go, oh yeah, I'm okay with that, then we can move along.
Clarification that the units aren't likely to be flipped once Habitat interacts with the current renters or owners. So there's a sense in which Habitat does due diligence to make sure that this is a situation where the resident or resident owners will have a reasonable intention to stay in the house, and that we're not helping the flipping market.
That's correct. I know of one situation in the past several years where the homeowner was aged and her family stepped in and did something and they sold it, and that was frustrating to Habitat in that situation because it was not affordable anymore, but every intention was to keep it that way. So yeah, I think you're right in how you've portrayed it, EC.
And I think, Mr. Chair, from that past experience, I know conversations I've had with Habitat is they talked about making sure that they have the correct documents in place when they're doing these programs so that that flipping does not occur. And if it did occur, then they do have to pay the money back to Habitat that would then come back to the city.
Yeah, yes, correct.
So with that in mind, I think for me, it's again, not a 15 in the sense that we don't have a long contract, but it ends up in that 10, certainly, 2/3 of the way towards what we're aiming for. So somewhere in the 10 or 11 range was my thought, Mr. Chair.
This is Melissa. I also scored that a 10.
Looks like there's a convergence in the force here.
In my head, it was a 10.
Okay. Shannon, can you live with that?
She's shaking
Right.
her head, yes.
Yep. Okay, number 12, the project addresses energy conservation through the integration of green building technologies and new construction, or achieves greater energy efficiency and cost savings to tenants through rehabilitation of existing housing. Again, it's not going to be new building, but certainly some of the projects at least will increase energy efficiency in the homes. So
But here, my understanding is that you usually use lead paint and asbestos to achieve those goals at Habitat. So my concern was whether the sustainability really, this was more of a 1-2 given the technology you use.
pretty sure they try and stay away from asbestos and lead paint.
Nothing seals a window like lead paint.
Yeah, yeah.
How many
Well,
points?
this
did
is
you have?
Melissa.
This is 5. Go ahead, Melissa.
I gave it a 4 based on the program isn't all about energy conservation because of the wheelchair ramps, but also it doesn't seem to me that it addresses all energy efficiency measures, but maybe I'm misunderstanding, like it might address windows, but not be a full, so a full like house makeover or whatever for energy efficiency. So I do agree it's not a full score, but I don't know if it's a 1. I for this question particularly, I think it would be interesting. I'm not going to say that this is approval would be based on getting this information, but if it was available to see, before and after energy bills for the people who receive the services. That would be interesting to see.
I was thinking more like a 3 maybe for this one, because it is not completely on this, and maybe again less than 4, but above half. So again, not to belabor it, are we okay with in that range of 3 or so for that category? Okay,
I'm comfortable with 3 or 4.
okay,
I'm good with that. This is
Okay.
Melissa.
okay. 13, the project maximizes partnerships in the community, volunteers, in-kind contributions, cash contributions, multiple organizations involved, etc., up to 5 points.
I say 5.
I would agree with that. That's definitely what Habitat does. So,
I also scored a 5. This is
Okay.
Melissa.
all right, good. Let's move on. Number 14, the project utilizes already existing resources in effective and innovative ways. The project shall not duplicate services provided by another organization. Up to 10 points.
This is Melissa. I gave that a 10, but I mean, I could see anywhere from an 8 to a 10.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, okay, existing resources. I mean, I guess to me, existing resources would be the labor part of what Habitat has. They have a labor force that builds things, and so they are using that, and sometimes in innovative ways, I guess. And I think the reason Habitat is doing these things is because nobody else is, and so it definitely doesn't duplicate services that are being provided. And when there's a chance to work with another organization, then Habitat tends to aim people towards that as well. So yeah, I would give it in that range too, 8 to 10. We all right with that?
Yes.
Okay. Again, I don't want to rush this, but I don't want to take too long if we don't need it. 15, the agency submitting the proposal has the capacity to carry out the project and has demonstrated successes completing projects of similar scope, up to 10 points. That seems like a no-brainer.
10.
10, okay, good. The budget and timeline are thorough and realistic. Evidence of construction and or service costs required with application. I mean, for the kind of projects they're talking about, it's hard to be super specific about either timeline or budget, but it seems like they do. I mean, the amount what they're willing to put in this and the type of support. Again, I would lean towards the upper part, maybe not a full 10 on this. What do you say?
I gave it a 10, but I'm fine with anywhere from 8 to 10.
Okay. All right. EC says 10. I'm good with that. I just, I don't want to overly influence anybody, Okay. So a 10. So we have 10, 20. Well, we have some ranges. So
39, 49. You came out at about 56.
yeah, that's what okay. Okay. So is that all? What do we need to do something else, or is that it?
Yep. So then what you would need to do, somebody to make a motion to recommend to the city council to fund the time-sensitive grant in the amount of $5,000.
someone want to so move?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
I second. This is
Okay.
Melissa.
Okay, any other discussion or anything about it? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye or wave.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nope, so 4-0. Okay, Affordable
Can I ask
Housing
a
Commission
question about-
responsible, I'm sorry.
The monies just in general. So is the time to apply for monies up?
Yes,
Over?
it
And-
ended on May 31st.
Right, that's what I thought. And then, so does the money that wasn't used, how much is in the fund, and does the monies just stay there, and do they get rolled over into the next year, or how does that work?
I'd have to look back, Commissioner, on the specific amount that's left, but the money rolls over. So the unspent money rolls over into next year. And so we'll do another notice of funding availability probably in the spring.
So we don't lose it or anything if it's not?
No, it's in a trust fund, so it can only be used for this purpose. So any unspent money just gets rebudgeted. And typically we'll have a conversation probably more towards later this fall, early winter, and put together another NOFA and go out like we did in the spring, and probably have again a deadline of around May 31st, end of May for applications. It's going to be a little different because we're going to get into talking about work programs and so forth, because we also have the construction excise tax funds now.
Okay, good questions, Carol, thank you. Okay, so we're ready to move on to Affordable Housing Commission responsibilities and meeting schedule.
Okay. So I was just kind of alluding to is we have a series of activities for all of you coming up. And so we've applied for a housing production strategy grant of $75,000 to the Department of Land Conservation and Development. We will hear if we've been successful in that grant application in early part of September of this year. In that proposal, we had to have a citizens committee, and city manager and I talked about utilizing the Affordable Housing Commission as that committee, because we've got this 5-year work program on housing. And so it structured the application so it was, a higher level, saying that we would have a citizens committee. But our anticipation is we would use this commission as for that. So there would be 6 meetings over the course of about 1.5 years for that particular grant. Then we have the 5-year work program. And in that 5-year work program, this coming in the fiscal year we're in today, we're looking to put together new regulations for small and tiny homes, standards for recreational vehicles, because we're constantly getting asked questions. Can we live on our RV? Car camping has come up before. It was on your list that you would put together. Sharing of utility lines, that was the sewer and water lines for some cost efficiency. And then revising our regulations related to second kitchens in homes. So the work program was basically supposed to start on July 1st. And so that was 26 days ago. In the process of trying to hire a housing planner to work on this work program. But there would be a whole body of information that will continually come in front of this commission for your feedback. In a lot of this, there will also be the planning commission, because there are some development code changes and modifications that need to be done. So it's a similar model to what we've done in the past. And then we've got the construction excise tax. And so we collected between January 1st and June 30th, about $240,000. And so again, working to hire a housing planner, because there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done with that. Right now, I'm short-staffed. So kind of doing planning by triage, planning, economic development, historic preservation, so forth by triage. But we're going to have to come up with the whole program. I mean, there's documents that are going to have to be prepared. There's handouts that need to be done. And all of this needs to touch the commission as well, because eventually, when we get to that point of partnering with a developer to build some affordable units, it will require your review and your recommendation to the city council on awarding any funding. So that funding could be we're actually investing in a project. It could be that we're assisting by writing down SDC charges. And so our legal department will have to prepare all the necessary documents, but we want to make sure that you touch all of that so that you become very familiar when we do bring proposals in front of you. So thinking of all of that is, meeting on a quarterly basis isn't going to work. So that means I have to ask the question, would you be willing to meet more frequently than a quarterly basis? It may be that there may be months where we need to meet every month, and there may be times where we only need to meet every other month. But again, just meeting every 3 months, I just don't envision that that's going to be successful with what we're trying to put together. So I wanted to just kind of have that conversation about what you think. I mean, you all signed up, went through your orientation under the auspices of, well, we only meet on a quarterly basis. And I'm proposing to change the rules of the game.
I'm fine
So-
with meeting more frequently. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah, I agree. It's more important that we do the right work and the good work than that we don't have to meet very often.
Oh, I have a question. I'm not necessarily opposed to meeting more often, but would we maybe have shorter meetings? I might have a problem if they're always during the workday is kind of my issue.
Yeah, I thought about that, Melissa. And, that's another question. Would it be easier if we did the meetings in the evenings rather than during the middle of the day? There's just nothing specific. I mean, I'm going to have to rewrite. EC and I talked about this, and bless you for making the offer. I just have been so swamped, EC, I haven't been able to circle back around on it. Is I got to rewrite the whole guidelines and so forth, because I got to weave in this whole construction excise tax. And we're talking about actually, instead of this commission being established by a resolution, actually codifying it in our municipal code and setting up that a little more formal structure, taking a lot of the guidelines that'll end up, but we'll still have guidelines for operating procedures and so forth. And so we can change the time when we meet as well.
I would be in favor of either later in the afternoon towards the end of the day or an evening meeting.
Yeah, even if it started around 4,
Mhm.
that might work a little better.
That would be much easier for me. Yeah.
In the end, I can probably do, Carol, you're muted there if you're.
I was
go
gonna say,
ahead.
I'm the only person here who's retired, but if I were working, I would be really hesitant to meet more often during the workday. So I would vote for an evening. Although it doesn't really matter to me these days.
Being someone whose work is pretty flexible, I don't mind the work during the workday, but I also am sensitive to others. I do have some evening meetings in my life, so it would just depend on when. Again, a late afternoon would be fine as well. So, I mean, I can make almost anything work eventually.
So what I'm kind of hearing is that, changing the time as we move forward, well, I'll have to figure out a date and all of that, but maybe, starting at 4:00 or the end of the workday, and that's all doable. Again, I'll have to check my calendar as well, but we can do this via email to try to establish, a day and a time that we basically can hold every month. And we may not meet every month, but at least it's on everybody's calendar, but somewhere around 4 or 5 o'clock or something like that. Because I know I've got other meetings sometimes that start at 7 and some start at 6 and some go till 6. And they just, I'm like the rest of you, we all got busy lives. But I'm generally hearing that's okay. And everybody would still be willing to continue on and participate, giving your responsibilities, except for Carol, who gets to relax and hear all the stories from Friends View that may not be actually correct. And you do not have a problem taking on this additional responsibility if we get the grant for the housing production strategy. That one would probably, those meetings again would need to be an evening. We'll have a couple of open houses that commission members would be invited to participate in and hear what the community may have to say. Okay. So I'm going to make a note to myself. This is the general consensus is okay.
In some ways, I feel like if we have it on for every month, it's less likely that we forget them. When they're only quarterly, you lose track of when it was last time and stuff and when it's coming up. So in some ways, for me, it's easier to just have it locked into, whatever day, whether.
Larry, you muted yourself.
Yeah, I stopped in it because my phone is ringing.
All right. So that's what I had on that topic. Thank you. Now I'm just going to give you some updates. So I've already put it in writing, but I'll just give you the verbal. So our community development block grant, our application for $500,000, we got a conditional award offer on that. So the Housing Authority and I will be continuing on with Business Oregon and get the necessary paperwork and get contracts and all of that put together. So looking forward to our second round of making improvements to manufactured homes and manufactured home parks. We had some very happy residents the last time we did this program. The vertical housing development zone. So that did pass by council and it went into effect on June 16th. We have not had any inquiries yet, but well, I take that back. I did have an inquiry, about a potential project in the downtown area, but I don't think that one's going to move forward. The middle housing for the duplexes. So council approved that ordinance with all the changes. So there's 52 or 53 different sections of the development code that got changed. We updated the Springbrook Master Plan, the Northwest Pacific Plan, the Springbrook Oaks Master Plan to allow for all the duplexes. And our code publishing, who manages our website for our code, got the email yesterday that they've finished. So it's now actually all live. And so I don't have to direct people to a separate web page and say, here, read this ordinance and understand what's going on, because then that leads to follow-up phone calls. I don't understand what's going on. So now it's all incorporated together. In the process of getting the contract signed with 3J to do the second phase of that project, and that is the other middle housing. So triplexes, quads, cottage clusters, and townhomes. There's some moving things and always more clarity coming out of DLCD on how to implement that. And so right now we're planning to hold public hearings in November at Planning Commission and December with City Council. You've seen the material. A lot of it is repackaging the way it was presented, put it in the proper code format and so forth. But if any of you have an interest in wanting to see that one more time, we can do that. The housing needs analysis. And so you had seen that document on several occasions. And so we got that accepted by council. And there were some questions that were raised about the middle housing and the 3% provision for duplexes all the way to townhomes. And we did some follow-up conversation. We did not do that in the March version of the HNA. But we followed up, had some conversations with DLCD staff and so forth, who had indicated that to comply with that, it would be in our next iteration of an HNA, which would be roughly 8 years from now. But we had community comments that we should really consider that because it affects your housing capacity and your land supply. So I directed the consultants to go back and make modifications to the HNA in Chapter 6 to incorporate that 3%. So in the memo I put together, the March version, we had a surplus of 31 acres of low density, a deficit of 37 acres of medium density, and a deficit of 44 acres of high density. By incorporating in the 3%, which equated to about 57 or 58 units, our surplus in low density is now at 35 acres. So there's a 4-acre change. Our medium density, we're a deficit of 34 acres. So that was a 3-acre change. And our high density stayed the same at 44 acres. So that went to City Council at their last meeting, and they accepted that report and the housing strategy. We've also been having conversations on the urban growth boundary expansion, and we've been talking with the Planning Commission and the City Council. So we did 2 Planning Commission meetings and 3 City Council meetings. And at the last council meeting, they passed a motion to directing staff to initiate an urban growth boundary expansion process and to move forward with incorporating the relevant elements out of the HNA, the EOA, and our public and semi-public land analysis into our comprehensive plan. So I will be working on that in the fall with the hope to getting back to Planning Commission in maybe December and Council in January, and moving that forward. The Riverfront Master Plan.
Doug, can I ask you real quick?
Yes.
With the urban growth boundary expansion, I know I was involved a few years ago with the whole and the new process for the state and kind of gathering information and struggling with some of that. There was the old process. Is this making sense at all what I'm saying? Are we living under the new now?
Nope.
Okay.
So the last time the community attempted a UGB expansion, we were doing a multiplicity of things at kind of the same time, doing urban reserves, UGB, and an EOA all at the same time. And all of those aspects were not successful, is a more polite word to use. And so then we attempted the new simplified UGB expansion method. We got some grant money from the state, and we started that, and we found that it was not workable. Did not work for Newberg. And so we actually, partway through that grant award, we withdrew. That council gave us direction to do that. And we provided presentations to DLCD staff and so forth about where there needed to be fixes. They did a few of the fixes, but there's more fixes that need to be done. So to do this one, we're going back to what's called the Division 24, which is the traditional method of doing UGB expansion. But this time we're looking at all of it. We're looking at all the residential and all the employment. The last time they were looking at just the industrial side of employment. So good question. Riverfront. So always ongoing activities in the riverfront. We've received applications for annexation. So ODOT got us the material we needed to annex the bypass. Basically for those areas that were not annexed between Chehalem Creek and Wilsonville Road. We've got the application from Commercial Development Company for the mill site and their holdings. And then we had 5 other properties, 2 of them owned by the city, Baker Rock, the Stonebrink family, and Goodell. And so those are all down off of 14th Street and Waterfront Street. So the first 5 of those annexations are scheduled to go to the Planning Commission in September and Council in October. And then the second batch, which will be ODOT and CDCs, we're looking at October with Planning Commission and November with City Council. So the goal is to have a lot of the riverfront area that was not annexed annexed in by the end of the calendar year.
So
Which
those-
also
those-
then
Those don't have to go to a vote of the
they
people.
They do not, since they were property owner initiated. And so what we did when we did the riverfront plan, we said that if you were willing to file the application and the supporting documentation, affidavits and so forth, the city would prepare the annexation application on their behalf. So that's taking care of all the legal descriptions, writing all the narratives and so forth. So we've got the first narrative done for the first batch of 5, got all the legal descriptions done. The legals are being worked on for CDC and ODOT and starting to do the work on crafting that application as well. So when we're done, it would be annexing, within the proposed urban renewal area, there were 244 acres that were outside of the city limits, but within the UGB, with these annexations, there would only be 54 acres left that would not be annexed. And that would be the old landfill, Rogers Landing, a little bit of property the city is buying from West Brock to expand our water treatment plant, and several other parcels. So it would be one of the largest annexations we've seen since Springbrook Properties was actually annexed. What was that, 12 years or so ago? So that is moving along. We've also made a change in our development code for the mixed employment area as part of the riverfront. And the council approved that ordinance, and that went into effect on July 21st. So just last week. So that's also in our development code. So that work is done. And then we had all of our, what we call our functional plans, our infrastructure plans, water, wastewater, stormwater, transportation. All of those have been through their public hearings and ordinances adopted by city council, and all are in effect now. So really almost all the implementation stuff from the riverfront is done except for these last bit of annexation. So that's good. Then the urban renewal, and I kind of mentioned this, the ad hoc committee for that had their last meeting on May 24th and recommended that the council refer the plan to the taxing districts. I should say they recommended to the urban renewal agency that they refer that. The agency did that on June 7th, and we sent out the notices on June 9th. The consult confer process ended yesterday at midnight on July 26th. We got no written comments back from any of the taxing districts on the plan and the report. We did go through a series of presentations with the taxing districts. 2 declined, Portland Community College and the Willamette Education Service District. Typically, the Education Service District follows the school district. And so we did a presentation to the school board as well. Next step in this process is that we're going to the county commissioners again for another session with them on Thursday, the 29th, on the urban renewal plan. We're seeking a resolution to approve the plan, and that is in conformance with their comprehensive plan. Our planning commission held a hearing last week on the 22nd and adopted a resolution indicating that the urban renewal plan was in conformance with the Newberg comprehensive plan and the Yamhill County comprehensive plan. So more on that, and I provided the link to the urban renewal page. So if you want to know anything about urban renewal, you can look at that, watch the videos from the comfort of your recliner or chair or kitchen table, whatever it may be. And that is all I have, Mr. Chair. Your mic's off, Larry.
It says, next meeting, October 26th, but in light of our earlier conversation, will that possibly at least come sooner, or are things going to take a little more time than that?
They're going to take a little more time. I'm hoping if we get the notice from DLCD that we've been awarded a grant, then we've got to go through contract negotiations. I'm going to be gone for a number of weeks in September. So I'm looking at our next meeting in October will be the same time.
Okay.
I think it's probably is when we move closer towards the end of the year or the first of the year is when our schedule will change.
Okay. All right. Good to know. All right. Anything else for the good of the order? Anyone?
I just ask a question about the materials that you gave us, and I will acknowledge that I did not read them word for word, but in several places, as I was reading through things, it talked about the Affordable Housing Commission having so many voting members and 3 non-voting members. Has that just kind of disappeared, or were you not able to find them any non-voting members, or what is that?
Well, so there are the setting voting members, which there are 5. Our student commissioner is a non-voting member. And then we had 3, what we called ex officio non-voting members. And we changed the guidelines because there was an interest by some people at that time of participating with the commission, but not necessarily having the obligation to have to review everything and vote. After we made those changes, their lives got busy and they did not have the time. So we have not officially gone out to try to fill those 3 ex officio seats. But if you happen to know someone who has an interest, direct them my way and I can work them through the process to get appointed as an ex officio member.
So their role as an ex officio would be just to kind of listen and give feedback, but not actually vote. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
I didn't have anybody in mind. I just wondered what happened to them.
They disappeared into the Ethernet.
Kind of like the man from Salem.
All right. Well, then with that, I would say, do we need to vote to adjourn or do we just adjourn? I can't remember.
You can just adjourn.
Okay. Well, we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody. It's good to see or at least hear everybody.
I apologize for being late. I was having huge issues with my laptop here, not loading correctly for about 15 minutes. I was really getting frustrated, so I was trying.
Good to have you.
Good to have you.
Forward to being able to someday meet again in person.
Yes.
So that's where I know that kind of at the very beginning, when are we going to go back into in-person meetings? Don't have a specific date set at this point in time. It's under discussion. As Sue had noted, there's some technology issues that we're trying to work through. So it may be later this fall. It could be by the time we get to the October meeting, we might be in person, or we may still be virtual. And of course, we also have the Delta variant that's out there and rising. And so, as always, I try to tell people, remind them is be safe, make good decisions.
Yep.
Giving it a shot.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And with that, those are words to live by and to say goodbye on.
All right. See you guys.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Bye, thank you.